Hey guys, so just coming to check in with you guys, first of all, on the Socratic seminar. So our first Socratic seminar was, for first block it went pretty well. For second block we definitely need a little bit more work on discussing, but we also had a lot of people absent. So I'm assuming online we're having some similar difficulties overall. Just keep in mind that when we're discussing so that we can kind of talk about all the stuff, all the big ideas we've been discussing over the course of the semester. And I send out those Socratic seminar questions to kind of help guide you. You're welcome to add or take away questions. You don't have to answer everything. It's just all about discussing those ideas and all those texts. So we have read quite a lot of literature if you start thinking about it. We read two people in the colonial period. We read someone for the revolutionary period. We read one of three people from the Romantic era. We skipped over to realism. We had a couple of texts by that particular author. We had someone for contemporary and four people for modern literature. One for modern and four for contemporary. Excuse me there. So just keep in mind that we have lots and lots of stuff. The only requirement that I have for your essay is that you use two texts. I don't care which two texts as long as we've read it in class. So any of the Anne Bradstreet poems, any of the Kate Chopin texts, any of the contemporary stuff we read from Unit 1, any of those are completely acceptable and completely valid to use here for this essay. So when you start breaking it down, guys, thesis statements and themes aren't all that different. So instead of you writing me a theme about a text and telling me what the author thinks about a particular text, you're telling me what you're going to write about, what's going to be the goal of your text. So essays try to prove a point. They're trying to argue a point. They're trying to persuade somebody that they are more right than somebody else. And that's the goal of every essay. You're always trying to argue that you are more right about something than everybody else. So think about something that is arguable. That's why I asked you to go ahead and post a thesis statement first so that I could look over that and talk to you a little bit about it if I saw that there were any problems getting started. And keep in mind that a thesis statement should be 1-2 sentences tops. Because if it is more than 1 to 2 sentences, you are developing a very, very complex idea, and that complex idea is going to take a novel to prove, whereas you're writing an essay. If you want to write me a novel, we can talk about it, but I'm guessing in the next 3 days you don't plan on writing a novel, so we need to talk about what we can prove in the length of an essay, not in the length of a novel. That's why I asked you guys to get those themes posted right away so I can look at it and give you some feedback ASAP. So remember, thesis statements are just the goal of the essay. What are you trying to prove? And that's why I ask you guys to do themes the way that I do, because if you're writing solid themes, guys, then you won't have to worry about writing an additional thesis statement. You will already have some choices. Now, if you want to write something else or write about something else, you will completely have that option. But it gives you a couple of places to start. And if you're looking for some examples of themes, I did post some a while back when I asked you guys to review your annotations for Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. I posted some additional approved themes then. If you scroll back in the classroom stream, you should see those. Those are some acceptable ones, and if I mentioned anything to you on your personal theme, if you change what I said to change or add what I said to add, you should be working with the theme there as well. So some general do's and don'ts for thesis statements. Don't put I think. Don't say I'm going to talk about. Don't write me something that is this big when you only have this much space to prove something. It needs to be vague but not too vague. It needs to be specific but not too specific. It's got to be that in the middle, just like theme does. And if you want some additional notes, I am going to post some additional notes here for you. If you're looking for a process to kind of get you started with theme, the first step is going to be kind of thinking about a topic that you want to discuss. So when you think about that topic, it may be something really broad like racism, which has popped up in several of the texts we've been discussing. Step 2 is going to be more specific about that topic. So what about racism do you want to talk about from that particular text? Do you want to talk about how it's shown in the text? Do you want to talk about the impacts of racism in the text? Do you want to talk about how the movement shows racism in several texts? That'll just be dependent upon what you want to say about it. So I would take step 2 and turn that into a question. It can be as simple as, what do I think about this particular topic? And it could be a more complex question like the questions I gave you for your guiding questions. If you are struggling to come up with a topic, or you're struggling to get more specific, use one of those questions to start off with, guys. If you use one of the questions I gave you for the Socratic seminar, you're basically starting at step 3 for writing your thesis statement. And you should have taken a couple of notes before you kind of wrote your paragraph, just to kind of get your thoughts together, I was hoping. In class, we took the time to do that, so I hope online you did as well. And step 4 is just to answer that question, whatever that question may be. You should, when you answer it, end up with a theme/thesis statement. So remember, they are kind of interchangeable when it comes to writing. So some do's, obviously, make sure it's arguable. Make sure that it's 1 to 2 sentences tops. Make sure that it is small enough to prove, but not so small that it's already a fact. And again, I'm going to post a little bit extra stuff for you guys just in case you're interested or you need a little bit more guidance. So what is writing all about? We just talked about that. Writing is all about proving a particular topic, saying that I am correct and I am the most correct because whatever. So once you finally get your thesis statement, the next thing you need to think about is, why am I right? Okay, why am I right? So when you say that, or you ask that question, what are the reasons why I am right? When you start writing those reasons are going to become your paragraphs, okay? They're going to be the topic sentences or the main ideas of your paragraph. And we're going to start talking about what kind of goes in a paragraph, an introduction, a conclusion, because I think I'm going to be saying a few things that you guys maybe either haven't heard before or haven't heard in a long time. So I'm just going to kind of refresh a couple of, do's and don'ts for writing, paragraphs, introductions, and conclusions. So we're going to start with the general writing do's and don'ts. When you are writing an essay for my class, when you're writing essays for any class, when you're writing an essay for a state test, any of those particular situations, unless specifically you are told otherwise, you should write in formal language, which means you should not use I, and you should talk not like you're talking to your friend, but you should talk academically. Talk like you know what you're talking about. And you should speak grammatically, or write grammatically correct when you are doing a formal essay. In your essays, you should have things that you're actually talking about. Don't write random stuff everywhere. If you are citing evidence, make sure that, or if you're using evidence, cite it. And we started talking about citations. I gave you access to the MLA Purdue OWL citation stuff, which I'm going to link again for you for in-text citations, which we're going to get into a little bit more later on in the week, which really all in-text citations are citing where you got your evidence from in your actual essay. So if you, whatever sentence you cite your direct quote from or your paraphrased quote from, because there is a difference. If you're not sure, Google it. You should put the author's last name in parentheses as an in-text citation. So I know that's who you're talking about. I know that's where you got the information from. It is literally the last thing you put in your sentence before the period. So I would ask you to put the author's last name and the page number that you got that quote from. So let's say you're using a Kate Chopin text. At the very end of the sentence, you would have your quote. At the end of the sentence, you would have an open parentheses. You'd say Chopin. Let's say you got it on page 2 of the text. you put to, and then you put a closed quote and a period. Just to kind of, give you an example. Always explain your idea, so don't just throw a piece of quote out there. You should always explain it. Don't just assume you're right. You are proving that you're right. You're not already right. You're not automatically right. So as I have stated before, as I've already proven, you haven't, unless you literally have already done those things. So keep in mind that you shouldn't be doing that, and you shouldn't also be using first person. You should always use third person, which is going to be like using those more gender neutral, like steer away from I and you. The reason you do this, guys, is because it's formal. Plus, if you say I think, I feel, I believe, I whatever, I know your name is at the top of the paper. I know that it is your thoughts, your opinions, your beliefs, your whatever. I know this. So you should always use third person. It helps you be more objective, and it makes you seem more unbiased. And we want unbiased writing. We want pure fact to come through. Even though you're using your opinion, you're trying to prove it with what is seen as fact. That's why you use your evidence. That's why you explain yourself, so you can kind of build that up logically to help me believe that you are, in fact, the most correct. And I'm going to post a little bit extra for that general writing do's and don'ts as well. Moving on to paragraphs. So paragraphs are the most important part of an essay because they are the body. They are the longest part, but they also do the most work. So that's where you really start to put in that work and prove that you are in fact correct, because the introduction just has your opinion. It just says, it answers the question, what do I think? What am I arguing? What do I think is true? The actual body paragraphs prove that you are in fact true or not. So I use an acronym known as PEAL, and it's to help you make sure you have all the parts of a paragraph that you need, which we're going to do a little activity with this later on in the week. I just want you guys to kind of hear it first before I ask you to fool with it. So peel, like peeling a banana. So P is point. So the point of an essay, literally those reasons, remember we talked about the thesis statement having reasons why you're right, and those becoming your points or your topic sentences in your paragraph. So you should always have a point in your paragraph. It should always have a topic sentence of some sort. And I'm going to argue that that should be 1 to 2 sentences, just like your thesis statement. So it should be quick. You should clear, direct, and concise. If you're not sure what the word concise means, Google it, because we got other things to worry about. But you should be concise, clear, and direct in all your writing. Next, you're going to have your first E, which is going to be evidence. So you have a point. My next thing is going to be like, okay, prove it. So you have to pull evidence, okay? Pull that evidence, which should be 1 sentence. One. In that sentence, your evidence should not be more than 10 words. If your evidence is more than 10 words, you are taking too long to cite and not enough time explaining. I want you to have 10 words or less. After 10 words, I stop caring, you stop caring, you start writing weird, I start forgetting what you even were trying to tell me. So I'm going to literally start marking off after 10 words, and I'll just mark the words out. If it doesn't benefit, it won't benefit you over 10 words. You're not going to explain more than 10 words, because whatever you write in a citation, you should write at least double that to explain it. Which brings me to my next E, explanation. So in your explanation, if you cited 10 words from your first, from your text, wherever, whatever, your evidence is 10 words. That means you already need 20 words in your explanation to start. That's just to start. Your explanation, I would say, needs to be the largest portion of your paragraph, which probably needs to be between 3 and 5 sentences. Why do I say 3 to 5 sentences? Because first of all, like I said, it is the most important part of your body paragraph. It's actually where you're doing the proving. Okay? So you're saying, okay, I told you this is what I believe, this is a reason why, this is evidence, and all of this shows this because of this explanation here. And if you're starting to wonder why these, these sections are looking a little long, like Miss Jenkins, hey, you're getting a little crazy over there. When you get to high school, guys, you should be moving towards, if you're not already at a 5 to 7 sentence range, you should be working towards that. And if you are already writing at that range, you should be moving on to a 7 to 9 sentence range, which is definitely what you are expected to be writing once you hit that, junior, senior level especially. So a really, really good paragraph is between 7 to 9 sentences, minimum. Does that mean you can have more? Of course. Does that mean that the rule's always going to apply? Of course not. But a solid paragraph is going to be between 7 and 9 sentences. You're going to have enough time to explain, you're going to have your point, you're going to have your evidence, and you're going to have our L, which we haven't talked about yet, but our L is known as a link. So a link is some kind of transitional sentence that kind of closes out what you've been talking about in the previous paragraph and moves on to the next one. So whether that's another body paragraph, whether that is whether that's your conclusion, it's kind of irrelevant. All of it is used as a stylistic way to tell your reader, hey, so I'm wrapping up this idea. I feel like I've done all I can here. Here's my next thought, or here's my next thing that I need to cover in this writing. So it's kind of like a clue to your reader, and it's kind of wrapping everything up, making sure everything is clear, and transitioning into the next idea. Transitional words and phrases are a big one too, so you guys might want to ask any questions about those that you have. Let me know, and I can potentially get you some stuff for transitional words and phrases. Sorry, went a little brain dead there for a second. So now we've talked about the majority of the essay, which kind of, basics. Don't use I, don't use contractions, be formal. Those general, do's and don'ts for writing as a whole, and then paragraphs. Let's move on to our introduction. Let's really, really talk about that for a second. The only thing you absolutely have to have in an introduction paragraph is your thesis statement. Do not spend time writing a hook and you end up spending the entire time you're writing on a hook. I do not care if you have a hook because I have to read your essay anyway. You don't have to draw me in. I have to read it. I don't care if you have a clever comment. I don't care. If you want to have one, have at it. But if that is what's holding you back from working on the important part, which is your body paragraph, skip it. As long as your paragraph has a thesis statement, I'm okay with that. Now, if it has the extra fluff in the introduction, you can put it, but 9 times out of 10, it's not really adding anything to your essay. Honestly, it's painful for you to write, and it's painful for me to read. So just skip all that extra stuff, have a thesis statement, and move on to your actual important stuff. Skip out all the fluff. Just don't put it. Because honestly, I can tell when you're fluffing, and it's not good. It's just not good. So save me the pain of having to read it. Save you the pain of having to write it. Just make sure that it's all meat, no fat. Trim it down. And conclusions, which we seem to always want to tell me that a conclusion is a restatement of the thesis. That is not correct. That is not what you should be using a conclusion for. Conclusions with such small papers are irrelevant when you write it that way. So if you are summarizing everything that has taken place in the past 500 words, you are wasting your time writing it, you're wasting my time having to read it. You should be answering the question, so what? So you have now told me that you believe this particular thing is true, and you told me these are the reasons why. So now that you have said all of that, so what? Why is that important? What does that do? What does that allow you to say next? The reason we don't summarize at the end of short essays is because I just read it. I already know. I already know what you wrote. I remember. I just read it, and it was not that long. So you should be answering the question, so what? So what does a better job of giving you something important to talk about, and it wraps everything up for your author, and it makes them think of new ideas, and it makes you want to say, oh, that's a really good idea. You know, I have something to say in response to that. So what is that key question for conclusions? A conclusion, typically you're going to be looking at maybe 3 to 5 sentences. And the same is going to be true for an introduction. And I would even venture on the side to say closer to 3. Honestly, if your introduction is more than 3 to 5 sentences, you're writing too much. You're writing a whole paragraph about the introduction, which all you needed was a thesis statement, which should be 1 to 2 sentences by itself. So focus more on that really, really important stuff. Have a thesis statement. Have your body paragraphs that have points, evidence, explanation, and some sort of links that peel. And then make sure your conclusion is answering that question, so what? Those are just some general tips and tricks, some general stuff I want you guys to be paying attention to and focusing on as you're writing. I am going to be asking for this essay starting on Wednesday. I'm going to ask you guys to be writing this essay over the course of the next 3 days. In class, I'm going to give everyone Monday and Tuesday. I will be posting an additional assignment on Wednesday for everyone. And that is a cold read practice that I am going to be posting a video for you guys so you can go through it with me, because that's what we're going to be doing in class. We're actually going to be going through this material together before you take your first actual cold read in class. I know we were out of a lot of time this semester. We haven't gotten as far as I would have liked, but we are going to be moving on to British literature and a lot more traditional style poetry. So keep that in mind. So you will have this week your thesis due, your essay due, that practice assignment. You will also have your midterm, and I am going to post a lighter assignment on Friday. So Friday you should only have your 3rd and 4th period exams because you should take mine on Thursday. I will have it posted for you guys Thursday. But on Friday, you should only have 3rd and 4th, but you have all 4 of your classes. So I am going to post a smaller activity, something that I just want you guys to kind of be aware of, notes-wise, and maybe a small little activity. Nothing too major besides the other really major activities this week, such as your exam and your first full essay in my class. Please don't hesitate to contact me about any writing questions. This is where I expect you to have the most questions. Not because you're not good at writing, not because you can't write, but because writing is hard. Writing requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of thinking and revising. Don't be afraid to have multiple drafts. Don't be afraid to have me look at it or look at something. I will make sure that I'm on the Google Meet every afternoon on the scheduled hours for you guys, which is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. For first block, it's 2 to 2:30, and for second block, it is 2:30 to 3. I have been on there. I haven't really seen anybody on there. Actually, I haven't seen anyone. So, I mean, I'm there. If I'm not for whatever reason, obviously, you know my email. A lot of you email me. You know you can send direct messages from Google Classroom on the particular assignment, and I have been good about responding back to those in a reasonable amount of time. Grades are due pretty soon after you finish your exams. So I need you to be finishing up this work and turning in anything that you are missing to me. I will not accept anything that is missing currently after Wednesday. If I get it after Wednesday, I will not grade it because I have time to grade your essays and your exams. That is it after Wednesday. And I give a lot of feedback when you write. So keep that in mind, that I will not take anything after Wednesday. So if you owe me anything, Monday and Tuesday are the days to get it to me because you have other things to do this week. We have a very, very full load this week. You need to stay on point. Let me know again if you have any questions, and I'll again post a couple of extra little tidbits and resources for you guys as needed. So let me know as always if there's any questions, guys. I am here to help. I'm around. Let me know. Be good, guys.